A fresh doping crisis hits the Olympics just weeks away from Rio. Claims from the outset that London 2012 would be the clean games are shattered. 23 of the competitors from 6 countries are exposed as cheats.
Also tonight, Obama embraces a survivor of Hiroshima. The president dreams of a world without the bomb.
The moment of madness that jailed a driver for 4 years and paralysed 2 little girls.
And Mourinho's confirmed at Manchester United. The Special One's $1 million a month deal is done.
This is the ITV Evening News with Alistair Stewart and Ranveer Singh.
Good evening. The claim the London 2012 Olympic Games would be the cleanest lies in tatters tonight. Samples taken there and retested with the latest technology have exposed another 23 athletes as cheats. They come from 6 different countries, and ITV News understands none is British.
The head of the International Olympics Committee today promised to keep dopers away from this summer's Rio Games. But with 31 from the Beijing Games already exposed, it's now a race against time to weed the drug cheats out. Our sports editor, Steve Scott, has more.
It's generally accepted that London was one of the best, if not the best, Olympics. That standard was set at the opening ceremony and continued throughout the Games. At the time, though, we were also promised they would be the cleanest. That looks a hollow boast now.
Okay, and here we have a bright new...
The London samples have been sitting in a freezer in Switzerland and have thrown up a surprise with the high number of athletes caught, proving the technology available is advancing rapidly, intelligence gathering has improved, or both.
Athletes who choose to turn up at these events and dope are at risk for a longer period now. And what that means is, with developments in scientific expertise, the sensitivity of tests, they're more likely to be found out.
The IOC reanalysed 265 samples from London. 23 failed the new, more sensitive tests. That's nearly 9% of the total. A higher proportion than the same exercise for the Beijing Games. 454 samples were reanalysed from 2008, and 31 of those targeted failed. That's just under 7% of all samples. But what of those who've been cheated out of success? Andrew Steele may well get an Olympic bronze if it's confirmed one of the Russian 4x400 team failed a retest from Beijing.
There is a cold sort of commercial side. You know, you are able to generate more money from sponsorship, more money from funding from your governing body when you win an Olympic medal, and that would have been an important help, I think, in the 4 years running up to London 2012 after Beijing.
It is now only 70 days till Rio. This latest scandal ensures much of that time will be dominated by doping rather than the sport itself.
Those numbers in your piece are truly striking. But is this a good day or a bad day for the anti-doping campaign?
Well, it depends as to which way you look at it, really. I mean, obviously, it's good news that they have caught a significant number of athletes. And if these tests are confirmed, that means that 23 athletes who potentially could have been competing at Rio will not be going. And it also shows, I think, that this method of storing samples, waiting for the technology to catch up and then retesting is a good way of catching the cheats. However, the other side of it is the sheer number of positive tests to come out of London, which I think has surprised the community. I mean, we were told that London had the most advanced anti-doping facility. Clearly, it has failed in some sort. So as little as 4 years ago, it appears that the cheats were outrunning those who were trying to catch them, and this, we can't guarantee, isn't happening at the moment. We're only 70 days away from Rio.
Right. Steve, thank you.
Both sides in the EU referendum campaign have been accused of failing voters by using misleading figures. Senior MPs said key claims over how much Britain would save if we left the EU and also how much families stand to lose were bogus and deceptive, and it's raised concerns that they were breaking promises to the Electoral Commission to behave responsibly. From Westminster, our political correspondent Carl Dinnan reports.
The public are being misled by both sides in this debate, say MPs. They say Vote Leave's claim that we send £350 million a week to the EU is highly misleading. And the government's claim that household income would be reduced by £4,300 if we left is mistaken. But it was Vote Leave's claim that leaving the EU would give us £350 million a week to spend on what we want that was singled out for particular criticism.
Some of these claims are seriously misleading and are impoverishing political debate. The prime example being the £350 million a week. That claim is bogus.
In their last prediction, before so-called Purdah rules stopped them getting involved, the Treasury estimated what might happen to pensioners if Britain left.
The Treasury analysis shows that a typical pensioner with a home and some savings would be between £18,000 and £32,000 worse off as a result.
But the former Pension Secretary says all the government's analyses have been biased.
My worry is that the Remain camp, which has been mostly the government so far, although we're now in Purdah, has actually been putting out one bogus report after another, which doesn't give the upside of us leaving. It only gives a notional terrible downside.
So where does all this leave the poor voters in Solihull?
Do you believe the Treasury on this?
No.
Why not?
Well, they're unable to predict even 12 months ahead. If everything stays the same, they'll probably be wrong.
For every negative, I always hear a positive. So as far as I'm concerned, I'll go with what I've decided.
Do you mind me asking what that is?
Out.
But down at the Hobby Club, there was confusion and concern about the new pensions claim.
I wouldn't like my pension to go down because, I mean, the cost of living today.
I don't necessarily trust what they say because if we're out, anything can happen.
Tonight, Vote Leave launched a competition, predict the Euro 16 results and win £50 million. Exactly the amount of money they still claim Britain spends every day on the EU. Carl Dinnan, ITV News.
And if you're still confused about those figures, go to our website where our experts will make sense of it all for you.
President Obama today hugged a Hiroshima survivor and acknowledged the suffering the atom bomb caused to tens of thousands of victims, most of them civilians. The symbolic visit to the Peace Park was the first ever by a sitting US president.
Mr. Obama didn't say sorry, but his presence spoke volumes about reconciliation between the two countries. From Hiroshima, here's our senior international correspondent, John Irvine.
The streets of Hiroshima were lined with thousands of people, for this was special and a long time in the making. The terrible wound suffered here was so deep and painful, it has taken the passing of 70 years for it to heal sufficiently to allow the leader of the country that inflicted it to come and pay his respects. The ceremony was dignified, with a stature befitting such a solemn occasion. But it was the personal moments that spoke volumes. 2 atomic bomb survivors got to welcome the US Commander-in-Chief to Hiroshima. A handshake and a chat with the first was followed by an embrace with the second. Catharsis through mutual warmth and respect. This visit is an extremely difficult balancing act. On behalf of the United States, Mr. Obama is expressing sorrow over what happened here, but he can't say that America is sorry for making it happen. When he spoke at the memorial site, he quickly acknowledged the 100,000 people killed by the bomb.
Their souls speak to us. They ask us to look inward, to take stock of who we are and what we might become.
Yoshiko Kajimoto hopes no one else ever has to clap eyes on the horrors that she did that August morning. The radiation killed her father and left her mother infirm. She was 14 and had to raise 3 brothers on her own. But, she said, Japan did terrible things as well and was not only a victim but an offender. It's for that reason that today an apology was neither offered nor sought. Instead, Japan and America have managed to get around the impediments to a reconciliation that's been a long time coming. John Irvine, ITV News, Hiroshima.
Here, a driving instructor has been jailed for 4.5 years for leaving 2 young girls paralysed in an horrific road rage crash. Andrew Ney drove his Land Rover right across the path of a car carrying sisters Katrina and Karlina Reba. They can no longer walk and they need 24-hour care after the crash in Northamptonshire last year. Sejal Carrier was in court.
This is the moment 2 sisters' lives changed forever, when the driver of a white Land Rover suddenly swerved into the path of their parents' car. Katrina Reba, just 5, and Karlina, who's 8, were sitting in the back seat. Happy, active girls who now may never walk again. But their father lives in hope.
They will tell me that I start to feel my knees, I want to walk. That's what I want to hear.
Andrew Ney was behind the wheel of the 4x4. Just minutes before, he'd been tailgating and bullying other drivers. Consumed by road rage, he then crashed into the car of an innocent family, leaving 2 girls paralysed.
There is no end for the family. This will go on for years and will affect them for years. And what I've been able to see from the Rebay family is the warmth and the compassion that they have for each other.
Today, the man responsible for what happened to these girls was jailed for 4.5 years. 2 sisters who will forever have to live with the devastating consequences of one man's reckless actions. Sejal Carrier, ITV News, Northampton.
A second Royal Navy warship is heading to the Mediterranean to tackle arms smuggling and people trafficking. HMS Enterprise is already in the area helping support the Libyan government. The Prime Minister also said a training team will be sent to help tackle the growth of so-called Islamic State.
Nearly all blockades of oil refineries in France have been removed by police, but tonight there are still fuel shortages across the country. Sally Lockwood is in Folkestone, where many Brits are preparing to get away for the half-term. Sally, can you give us the latest information?
Well, drivers are being urged to fill up at every opportunity, especially before leaving the UK and crossing the Channel. Now, restrictions for taking extra fuel really vary. The Eurotunnel, for instance, allows you to take up to 30 litres of extra fuel in your car, which is way above the 10-litre amount allowed under French law, while ferry companies aren't allowing you to take any, or some ferry companies. Now, the fuel shortage has become such a problem in France that the RAC has today said it can no longer help its customers if they run out. The protests, however, have been calmer in France today, but unions are calling for protesters to step up their industrial action. And in the last half an hour, one of the unions has threatened to target cities where Euro 2016 matches are being hosted next month. So there's little sign of this dispute ending anytime soon.
Oh dear. OK, thank you, Sally.
The row over how much money Britain gives and receives from the EU may have flared up again, but there is one part of the UK, at least, that does make a net gain. Wales gets the equivalent of £79 per head more than it contributes. Benefits from a £1.8 billion structural fund. And EU money has helped create more than 36,000 jobs. But it hasn't, of course, saved failing industries, and there has been a surge in support for UKIP. In the final part of his journey across the UK ahead of the referendum, Martin Geisler travelled along the Ebbw Valley and heard people's differing views.
The people of Wales don't do too badly from the EU, comparatively speaking at least. This part of the country receives more European funding than almost anywhere else. It's paid for all manner of upgrades and improvements down the years, but money can't buy you love. And here in the valleys, where jobs are scarce and times are hard, there is a definite sense of frustration. The boxing club in Cwmcarn hasn't seen a penny from Brussels. The coaches keep things ticking over by charging the kids a couple of pounds per session. But it's tough. UKIP are punching hard into this old Labour heartland with their message that Britain is strong enough to stand on its own 2 feet.
I'm voting out because I think Europe
have the say over us, and we're an island, and I believe we're efficient enough to look after ourselves.
The landscape here is littered with the relics of old industry, a Wales from another age. For half a century, the colliery in Crumlin in the Ebba Valley stood idle and dilapidated, until Bob and Vera Jenkins bought it 6 years ago for £1.
We couldn't bear to see it going to rack and ruin when we could use it for the community.
They want to turn it into a business park for small local firms, but that'll cost £30 million. So far, they've been given just a few thousand in EU funding. What might be available, they wonder, if Britain wasn't writing cheques to Brussels for several £billion each year.
Do we really need to pay that much money to be able to have free trade? I don't know yet.
You're undecided?
I'm undecided.
You're the voter they're all chasing at the moment, aren't you?
Well, the network is wonderful, the cost's phenomenal.
We drove on along the heads of the Valley's road towards Ebba Vale. It's a dual carriageway these days, thanks to cash from Brussels. And European money is breathing life back into the town too.
This particular site is now a beacon of hope, really, for Ebba Vale.
An impressive new college has replaced the old steelworks, teaching 1,500 full-time students skills that'll stand them in good stead. Brussels pumped £8 million into this project, money that might never have come here if London was dishing it out.
There may be some people who want Brexit, for instance, who are hoping that the money that we save would get spent in this area. But as I say, that is the risk.
Well, the risk is that this area is no longer seen as a priority.
The risk is that somebody in Westminster decides to spend the money elsewhere, yes.
One thing Wales has in abundance is national identity. Whether its people see themselves as Welsh, British or European is a question that's about to take on more significance, perhaps, than ever before. Martin Geisler, ITV News, in the Ebba Valley.
Jose Mourinho proudly posted a photo of his multi-million-pound contract with Manchester United on social media today as he was finally confirmed as manager. He said he wants to win, which he'll certainly need to do to keep the job. Our sports correspondent Ian Payne looks at his many challenges ahead.
It's taken a week of negotiation, but finally Jose Mourinho is the new Manchester United manager.
I feel great. I think comes in the right moment of my career, because Man United is one of these clubs where you need really to be prepared for it, because it's what I used to call a giant club.
When are you going up to Manchester, Jose?
Mourinho left his London home this morning and immediately lit up the day for one fan who became the owner of the first Mourinho signed shirt. Not his most valuable signature of the day, though, with the new manager christening his Instagram account with a photo of his 3-year contract.
I think what the fans are expecting me to say is that I want to win.
He'll also be trying to elicit more signings. He's thought to want Swedish superstar Zlatan Ibrahimovic to join him.
Can you confirm if there has been an offer from Manchester United?
Let's see what happens.
And that's not the only thing on Mourinho's to-do list. Like persuading assistant manager Ryan Giggs to accept a less high-profile role. Giggs is considering the offer. And preparing for a pre-season tour meeting with Manchester City and their new manager Pep Guardiola. And they don't get on. Fans around Old Trafford today were keen to show off their new Mourinho merchandise and voice their approval.
Mourinho.
As did former United players.
I think United fans, speaking as a fan, I think they're happy. At United, you have to produce. You have to play a certain style. He will know that, and he will do it.
But Mourinho hasn't come cheap. His contract is thought to be worth £36 million. Well, it's a lot of money to bring him here to Old Trafford, but Mourinho will tell you he's worth every penny because he's got the highest win percentage of any Premier League manager in its history, and that includes Sir Alex Ferguson here at Manchester United. And it's going to be absolutely fascinating to see how he deals with both his busy summer and also next season, which is chock-a-block with high-profile managers.
Ian Payne, thank you.
France remembered the heroism of surviving British veterans of the D-Day campaign today, awarding them its highest honour, the Légion d'honneur.
Among them was one of the few British women to receive it, the remarkable Marzie Taylor. As Paul Davies reports, she played a key role in planning the secret invasion which liberated France.
Grande honneur, madame.
It was a day when France bestowed its highest honour on a room full of D-Day heroes. 17 men, all in their 90s now, and Marzie Taylor, the first female veteran to receive the Légion d'honneur from the French ambassador. 72 years on, France is saying thank you to the British men and women who took part in D-Day and began the liberation. Working in intelligence, Marzie helped plan the invasion, work so secret she couldn't tell her closest family.
And they was to ask me what I did, and I just said, oh, in intelligence. And they didn't ask any more. That was all I needed to say, and they asked no more questions.
And yet you had that secret in your head. You
Yes,
knew
yes.
when D-Day was going to be.
Oh, absolutely, yes. You knew for about a year beforehand.
As a young wren, Marzie had been awarded the British Empire Medal for pulling civilians from a bombed building. But today's ceremony at the ambassador's residence was something she'd been determined to attend.
As the time got nearer, I thought I really must be careful. I hope I don't die suddenly beforehand, which, I mean, is likely, at my age, is likely to happen at any moment. And I thought I must keep going till I receive this, and I've made it. So I don't mind what happens now.
What comes next is Marzie's 97th birthday in a few weeks' time. Quite a lady, quite a life. Paul Davies, ITV News.
And finally tonight, the very lucky escape for Bobby the Cocker Spaniel. The 2-year-old vanished during a walk in Norfolk.
But Bobby had actually fallen 82 feet down a hidden well. His owners had almost given up on him for dead until a farmer heard whimpering 2 weeks later. Rescue teams brought Bobby to safety and unhurt. He's happily back home.
Great story. OK, Nina Hussain's here with the news at 10.
Bye-bye for now.